I want you please to stand tall, feet parallel. Just make sure that your feet are exactly in line with each other. And when we talk about the width of the feet, your heels are under your sit bones. Your sit bones are the bones that you sit on, okay? So your heels are under your sit bones. So there's about a fist width between the broadest part of the foot, between the sort of the bulgy outy bit knuckle of the big toe. Equal weight through both feet. So feel those two triangular shapes that you're standing on. So if you look down, think about from the ball of the foot across to the knuckle of your little toe, back to your heel and back across. You've got 3 points of contact. So just watch if you're somebody that tends to overpronate, roll inwards and let your knees fall in. Think about being a little more weighted through the outside edges of both feet and just simply pressing a little more through the outside edges. You'll feel what we call the lateral chain, the chain through the side of the thighs running down, connecting. Likewise, if you tend to want to sit into your heels, think about bringing the weight slightly further to the front of both feet, and immediately that will just open up through the lumbar spine and set the pelvis to neutral. Crown of the head traveling to the ceiling. So you can just pop one hand there if you feel like it, or just imagine it and think about pushing your head upwards to try and create as much length in your neck as you can. Now, don't confuse that with lifting your chin. Chin parallel to the floor, chin resting on a shelf. So you're trying to create that length. And remember, when you're doing any work face down on the floor, when I talk about lifting the head and chest, that's how you stay. You don't lift your chin to the ceiling. You have your eye line straight out in front of you. I want you just to bring your hands to the sides of your ribs and breathe into your hands. Take a deep in breath and allow your ribs to expand and open. And as you breathe out, pull your ribs down away from your hands. Don't use your hands to press. Use the muscles around the ribs to pull your ribs down and in. And then again, as you breathe in, I want you to feel how the ribs expand to the side. So we're going to our lateral thoracic breathing. Breathing, one of the main fundamentals with Pilates. And it's, in my opinion, one of the hardest things to really practice and learn and become comfortable with. So I just keep reminding us about it. And gradually it will become more familiar. Now take one hand to the front of the rib cage, one hand to the back of the rib cage, and again, breathe into both hands. Feel how the ribs expand forward and backward. And as you're doing this, I want you to start to find connection with your pelvic floor. So as you breathe in, I want you to imagine how the crown of your head is pushing to the ceiling. And as you breathe out, I want you to give your pelvic floor a squeeze. Think about traveling all the way from the back, base of the spine, right the way through between your legs and up to your pubic bone. As you breathe in, allow your pelvic floor to slightly relax. And as you breathe out, give it a squeeze. And just let's have another minute or so here. Hands to the sides, hands to the front and back. We're thinking about the support network through the middle of the body. We've got the diaphragm sitting at the top. We've got the pelvic floor sitting at the base. And we've got the muscles around the front, the sides, and the back. We've got this fantastic muscular structure to hold and support the spine, to give us our balance, to support a correct posture, and so on and so forth. And we just need to check in sometimes and find out where it is. So for the last half a minute or so, while we're still thinking about our setup, as you practice breathing out, putting the ribs in here, likewise here, just bring one hand a little lower down to the fleshy bit between the hip bones. And as you breathe out, still thinking about that engagement with the pelvic floor, try and pull your tummy off your hands. So think about trying to squeeze your hip bones towards each other and pulling in right into the base of the abdominal wall. But again, as you breathe in, just allow it to relax slightly and just take a moment here to identify all the different areas. We've got our breath, we've got our correct posture. We're thinking about pushing into breath into the ribs, maintaining that length of the spine, finding that abdominal connection, finding that pelvic floor connection. At the moment, we don't need loads of support. So we engage just enough to be aware, but no more. If, for example, we were to take one foot off the floor, challenging our balance, then we'd engage a little bit more. But until we need those muscles, we only have them switched on as a quiet background hum, and then we know where they are, or we can pull them in a little more tightly when we need them. Okay, let your arms hang down. Let's just have some shoulder rolls, but just keep checking in. Think about abdominal connection. Think about that pelvic floor connection. Breathing into those ribs. Bring your hands up onto your shoulders and just make a circle with your elbows. And I think just checking in is a really good thing. So we've had just 3 or 4 minutes of being really mindful of our setup, of our postural setup, of our breath work. And it's great practice, no matter how experienced you are, no matter how advanced you are. I do it in my own practice quite regularly. Just take a couple of minutes laying still and just really connecting with my body, because otherwise we can get a bit lazy. Now, bring your arms to the ceiling and take it into a full circle. So needless to say, if that one doesn't suit you, you could stay with your shoulder rolls. You could stay here, or as I say, coming into the double arm circle, whatever feels best for you. Let's just do 2 more. Now, when your arms come up, watch that you're not letting this happen through the spine. So use your breath to help your movement. Breathe out as you lift your arms. So as the further away the arms go, the more you're breathing out as the arms come back in. Breathe in. You're using your out breath, as we practiced here, to keep those ribs pulled in and down. Okay? Now relax your arms down by your sides. And I want you from here just to soften your knees, okay? Just slightly off lock, and take a nod of your chin, nose to breastbone, and start to roll forward and over. Now, as you roll over, don't let the weight move through your feet. Try not to let your shoulders collapse. Still have a sense of space between your collarbones. And I want you to take a bend of your knees as though you're going to sit onto your heels. Obviously, your knees will tell you how much of a bend you're going into. And you're going to start to roll up. And as you do, you're pushing your hips right in underneath you, and then stand tall. So you're rolling down with your knees soft. Some of you will bend further than me. Some of you won't go as far as me. Then you're going to take a little seat. And as you roll up, you're trying to push your tailbone right in underneath you, and then stand tall. Keep it going. So start with a nod of your chin to your chest. Knees are soft. Rolling forward and over. Then sitting down. Now, don't sit your bottom out behind you. You're keeping your sit bones above your heels. And as you roll back up, really work at pushing your hips forward and in so that you get that lovely lengthening through the lower spine. Let's do 2 more of these. Surprisingly challenging, because we're asking that lumbar spine to really go into a flexed, rounded position. So rolling up, don't make it all about the shoulders. Tuck your tailbone right in underneath you and stand tall. Just 1 more like this. Breathe into those ribs, equal weight through both feet. Head hangs heavy. And again, tuck your tailbone right in underneath you and roll yourself back up and stand tall. And I want you on your out breath just to bring your arms to the ceiling. On your in breath, lower down. And as you do this, just check in how far your arms go so that this doesn't happen. So as you lift your arms, you're pulling your ribs down and in, but also keeping your arms straight. If you get here and you need to bend your elbows, then don't go any further. Only go as far as where you're maintaining this rib to hip connection and your arms stay straight. And again, we'll be revisiting this one laying on our front. Let's just do 3 more. Breathe out as you lift your arms, reaching to the ceiling, and breathe in to lower. So for example, I've got one side, I have to work really hard because I know my elbow's trying to bend. So I've become very aware of that. And you might think, actually, you know, I'm not going any further than that, because as soon as I lift my arms, my back's starting to arch. This is where, as I referenced earlier, you'll use those abdominals a little bit more, because as you lift your arms, perhaps your ribs are trying to flare. So whereas before we had those muscles just quietly switched on, now as you lift your arms, you might need to pull them in quite a bit more to stop those ribs. Because if the ribs push forward, that's what's happened to your back, even if it's really subtle. Okay, relax your arms back down, and we're going to come into a 4-point kneeling position. So just come down onto your mat, bring yourself into a square box. Make sure your knees are safe. So if you're on a skinny mat on a hard floor, maybe you'll double the mat over. And just make sure you are in a correct setup. Your hands are under each shoulder, your knees are under each hip. Just look underneath yourself, make sure that your knees are at hip width. And I want you just to go into a rounded spine and then into an arched spine. So our cat-cow, okay? Rounded spine, but make sure when you round your spine that your lower back's getting involved. It's not all about your shoulders. So as you round your spine, you're trying to pull your tailbone right in between your legs. You're trying to touch your forehead to your tailbone. As you arch your back, try and push the floor away from you. Let's do 3 more. See how much further you can go each time. Arching your back, sending your ribs down towards the floor. Let's just do a couple more here. Remember, you're trying to push the floor away from you with your knees, with your hands, then into an arch. And make sure that your lower back is getting just as much involvement as your upper back. It's very easy to focus on the shoulders and get a little forgetful about that lower back. And what I want you to do now is find your midway point. So from a very obviously arched back to a very, very rounded back, where is your midway point? Just find it and hold it. So we've got our pelvis in its neutral shape. Now, remember when you had your hand on your tummy when you were standing up? Just feel that now, feel that area and pull it up a little bit more. Shoulders stay down. This is absolutely perfect. No cheating allowed. Slide your left leg along the floor, keeping your toes in contact with the mat, and send your legs straight out and just hold it, toes stay light. And slide your left knee back in. And when your knee meets the floor, before you take your right knee away, there should be no weight shift. Then right leg away. Keeping your toes on the floor. Have you got equal weight in both hands, or have you put all the weight into your right hand? Keep that left hand connected and slide your right knee back in. Now just hold it a moment. Look under your knee, look under your tummy at your knees. Are they in their correct position, or have you walked them in towards each other? So these are all little things to be aware of. Let's go left leg again, slide it away. Now, rest on your toes and just give your leg a little stretch. Pull your toes a little further away. And can you lift your foot just an inch or two? Not too high. Don't go too high because you'll arch your back. Lower your straight leg. Find the floor with your toes. Slide your knee back in. Opposite side. Both hands equally weighted. Now, take your time. Make sure your leg is fully straight. Then lift an inch or two. Are you still pulling into that lower tummy area? Slide your knee back in. Are you still breathing into your ribs? Let's do that one more time on each side. Equal weight through both hands. Watch that you haven't pulled your shoulders up right around your ears. Keep space between the collarbones. Done correctly, there's a lot of abdominal work here. So if you really feel those tummy muscles are working hard, good for you. Well done. They should be. Make sure when you send your leg behind you, it's fully straight. So give the back of the knee a little squeeze. Bring your knee back in underneath you. Find your 4-point kneeling position, neutral. And we're going to do exactly the same thing now with our arms. So I want you to slide your left hand along the floor. Keep your fingertips in contact with the floor. And then slide your hand back in. Right hand away. Now you're going to notice that the abdominal work is in a slightly different place now. It's slightly higher up the rib cage. Now take your left hand away this time, and when your arm is fully straight, lift your hand. Can you bring your arm right up next to your head? Maybe not, that's okay. Lower your straight arm out in front of you. Slide your fingers back in, stable through that center. Opposite arm away. I want you to visualize a tray of glasses resting across your back. Don't let them rattle at all. Lift that arm and bring it back down. Let's do that one more time on each side, and then we're going to add the two together. But as we're layering, this gives you an opportunity to see how you're working, and perhaps it won't suit you to put both together. Perhaps it will suit you to keep your arm and your foot on the floor. So you will adapt it to make it correct for you. So let's just come back to 4-point kneeling, everything back where it started. And let's go with one leg and the opposite arm. Both fingertips and toes stay on the floor and get your arm fully extended in front, leg fully straight behind, and then lift. Now, bring your arm right up past your head if it will, but don't take your leg too high because you don't want to upset the balance. Lower both down, keeping your legs straight. Find the floor, fingertips and toes, and then slide it back in. Try not to bend your knee mid-air. Let's go side two, slide it away. Remember that tray of glasses resting on your back. When you lift your leg, watch you don't arch your back. I want you to imagine that I'm standing next to you and I'm resting my hand on the back of your waistband. Okay, and as you lift your leg, I want you to very slightly push into the back of your waistband. Feel my hand there. Try not to arch away. Slightly push into the back of your waistband. Keep the back of the rib cage in contact with your t-shirt. We're going to do that one more time on each side. If you're finding this really challenging, then that shows you that you are working correctly, because done correctly, this is a surprisingly tough exercise. This is our dead bugs when we're doing it on our back. Exactly the same action. Just check when one leg comes off the floor that the weight is equal on both knees. You're not pushing your hips to sit out to the side of the supporting knee. Make sure your leg is straight, your arm is straight, your shoulders are in line. Bring it all back in this time. And if your knees are happy for you too, you're going to sit onto your heels and stretch your arms out long. If that one doesn't suit you, if your knees don't like that, then I want you to come over onto your back, lie on your back, and give your knees a little hug. Superb. Well done. All right. And I want you now, please, to come over onto your back into our basic neutral setup. Now, one of the things I see a lot is people having their arms far too far away from them. Bring your arms in narrow. Give your arms purpose. Everything has a role to play. If it's moving, then obviously it's creating that sense of wherever the body's trying to move to. If it's not moving, then it has a stabilizing role to play. So everything has a job to do. If your arms are halfway off the mat, then they're far too wafty. They're not doing anything. So get your arms narrow. Press your arms gently into the floor and just open through the chest. Slightly pull your collarbones apart. Let's go back to that tuck and tilt. So flatten your back and arch your back. So I want you to see how much movement you can get through your lower back. Can you keep your head still? So tip your hips backwards into the floor so your back becomes flat. And then tip your hips the opposite way and create as much space in the back of the rib cage as you can. Can you keep your head still? Okay, now we're going to move on from this into our shoulder bridge with articulation, thinking about the movement of the spine. So the next time you send your hips back to the mat, pick up your tailbone and peel your spine away. Now, nobody's looking at you. You're doing this for yourself. It doesn't matter how high you lift. Okay, so maybe the first one or two, you won't lift quite so high. I want you just to hold it here for a moment. Now let's revisit that breath work and that abdominal and pelvic floor connection. So with your hips off the floor, your hips might be right up towards the ceiling. They may be much lower, it doesn't matter. But either which way, your ribs are sitting lower than your hips. Feel that length through the lower back. Give your pelvic floor a very gentle squeeze. Think about pushing your breath into the sides, the front, the back of the rib cage without letting your hips collapse. Here's your strength element by holding yourself in this position. If you feel the backs of the thighs are really dominant, give your bum a little squeeze. Wake those glutes up. As you breathe out the next time, start to curl down. And I want you in your mind's eye to see every link of the chain. Okay, curl back down, relax into a neutral pelvis, and again, tip your hips backwards. Pick up your tailbone, peel your spine away, rolling up through as rounded a spine as you can. Have you still got that connection with both arms? Have you got your shoulders heavy to the floor? Hold it here. Keep that space between your collarbones. Give your shoulder blades just a gentle squeeze together. And what about the length of your neck? Perhaps you need to push the crown of your head further away to the wall behind you. Try pushing your knees a little further out in front of you. And as you breathe out, curl back down, link by link by link. Now we're going to do 4 more, but this time we're not going to hold it at the top. We're just going to enjoy the movement. Tip your hips backwards, and on the out breath, roll yourself up. You can either take a breath in here and then roll back down, or you can roll back down on the in breath. If you're confused with your breath, don't worry one bit, just keep breathing. Just make sure, daft though it sounds, just don't hold your breath. So if you're thinking, hang on, do I breathe in on the in or the lift or the lower? Just breathe, that's the most important. Generally speaking, we talk about breathing out on effort, because again, if you go back to our setup, the breath out is when we can really squeeze everything in. So generally you would think about breathing out as you prepare to lift or what have you. But as I say, if in doubt, just keep breathing. This is going to be our last one, and we're going to curl back down. All right. Now I want you to find your neutral pelvis and bring both arms to the ceiling. So our arms, 2 of our main supporters, 2 of our main stabilizers. Now we've taken them away, so we're going to be a little less stable. Now roll up into bridge. Let's do 3 more, keeping our arms where they are. And curl back down. You may notice now that the lower body needs a little bit more attention. And again, tipping those hips backwards, peeling that spine away. Imagine holding a ball between your knees. You're trying to push your knees away from you. Arms stay completely still. Look at your hands. Make sure they're not going anywhere, not even a millimeter. Stabilization through the shoulder girdle. Articulation through the spine. This is our last one. We're going to curl back down. Slowly does it. And when you might meet the floor this time, give your knees a little hug, pull them in, just release through your lower back. And you may choose to roll your head side to side a couple of times, perhaps. Fabulous. Bring your feet back down to the floor and just find that neutral pelvis. Okay, so as we did the tuck and tilt, as we did the cat-cow, just take your hands now. This is a really good practice. Take your hands, rest the palms of your hands. Rest your fingertips on your pubic bone. Yes, rest your palms on your hip bones so that your thumbs meet each other across your tummy. So you're making a triangular shape. Pubic bone, hip bones in line. So if your pubic bone is sitting higher than than where your thumbs are, your back is too flat. If your pubic bone drops down and where your thumbs meet each other, your thumbs are sitting higher, your back is too arched. This is my Goldilocks in the 3 bears. So we want the baby bear position where it's just perfect in the middle. Hip bones, pubic bone in line. Another really easy one, in my opinion, check-in point, is where your collarbone is. Collarbone and hip bone are exactly in line with each other. That's another really easy one. So if your hip bones are lower than your collarbones, look at how arched your back is. Now, can we maintain that shape and start to tighten that belt? Now, we want to stay in a neutral pelvis as much as possible. We want to resist pressing the back flat to the floor because we need to develop strength in these muscles. We've already got that background hum, deep postural muscle, what's called the TVA. Now we're going to start to tighten the belt. And what I want you to do is bring one leg into tabletop. Knee sits above the hip, shin parallel to the ceiling. If you need to press your back into the floor, that is an option, but it's your last resort. First of all, I want you just to become heavy under your back ribs. Become heavy under your waistband. So you're not moving anything, you've just got a sense of heaviness, and you'll feel how the tummy muscles, abdominal muscles start to tighten. And now lift your second leg and hold it. Now, this may be enough for you, and that's completely fine. This is a very good way of measuring progress, how long you can stay here, how many breaths you can hold this for, but we're going to start to build on it. If it suits you to stay here and just keep coming back to this level, you're really welcome to. Otherwise, let's bring one foot back down into its same footprint and then the second foot. Let's go back into that one. Leg one, tabletop. Find that sense of connection across the back of the ribs, back of the waistband, leg two. Remember, provided your bottom back ribs are on the floor, your spine will be safe. Now bring both arms to the ceiling. We're going to go into our bugs, which we did in 4-point kneeling. Same action here. Flex your feet. Push your heels away from you. Take one leg out long. Push your heel right out. Bring your leg back in. Take the opposite leg out long without your ribs flaring, without your tummy bulging out. And come back in. Let's do that one again. Arms stay still. Equal weight across the shoulders. Now, as one leg goes long, don't let the other knee sneak in. You can take your leg much lower so your leg skims along the floor. We're going to do one more on each side. You can take your leg much higher and push your heel towards where the wall meets the ceiling. So you only take your leg as low as where you've got the strength of the abdominals to stabilize it. Come back to the center. Both legs now stay still and take one arm overhead and return. It's hard work, isn't it? Already feel how much those abdominals are having to work. Arm two, overhead. Now, when your arm goes away, let's do two more on each side. Slowly does it. When your arm goes overhead, you're trying to keep your arm as close to your head as possible and straight. As soon as your elbow starts to bend, I want you not to go any further because you're no longer getting the progression. Who can still feel those ribs heavy to the floor? Who's still thinking about breathing into the ribs? Have you got that pelvic floor connection? Can you feel that belt around your center? Watch, you're not holding your breath. One more on the opposite arm. And we're going to just recover before we put the two together. So I want you to bring one foot to the floor. Bring the second foot to the floor. Bring your arms to the floor. Now maintain the neutral pelvis and now push your hips straight up to the ceiling. So we're going to have a little bit more strength. When I say recover, we're doing a different exercise and then we'll come back to that one. So strengthen the gluteal muscles, the buttock muscles into the hamstrings and lower straight back down. So whereas we articulated the spine curled up, curled down before, now we drive straight up and straight back down. And again, straight up. Give those glutes a little squeeze on the way up and back down. I want you to squeeze your glutes as you drive your hips up. I want you to squeeze your pelvic floor as you lower your hips down. 3 more. Drive those hips up, squeeze the glutes. Relax the glutes, squeeze the pelvic floor on the way down. Make sure you come back into that neutral shape through the pelvis. Let's do one more after this. Superb. You're going to lift this time and hold. Take both arms away. Hold your arms to the ceiling. Lower your hips. Halfway lift. Halfway lift. So we always layer. So if you feel this is a little intense, go back to how we were working a moment ago. Halfway lift. Halfway. Let's do 4 more. Breathe in as you lower. Breathe out as you lift. And 3 more. And squeeze those glutes as you lift. I want you to really give them a good squeeze. Make them work. They're going to try and avoid it. They're terribly lazy. Lift your hips and come back down this time. Leave your arms where they are. Bring leg 1 to tabletop. Bring leg 2 to tabletop. So remember, have your arms on the floor if you need to and go back to that static hold. Otherwise, flex your feet. We are now putting the 2 moves together. One arm, opposite leg, long on the breath out. And recover as you breathe in. Opposite side out long. If you're finding it tough, well, yes, done correctly, Pilates is tough. There's a saying, there's a lot of people out there doing Pilates who are not doing Pilates. And if you think it's easy, you sure as heck ain't doing Pilates. Because here we are doing a beginner level move. Don't know about any of you, but my goodness me, I'm working really hard. My abs are telling me that. We're going to do just one more. So you've done around about 3 on each side. Come back down. 1 foot and then the second foot to the floor. Both arms overhead, full body stretch. Stretch it out and lengthen. Wonderful work, everyone. Well done. From here, I want you please to roll onto one side. I'm going to rest your head. I'm just going to tilt my screen slightly. I'm going to rest your head on your lower arm. Okay, if you need a cushion here, if you need to put a cushion between your arm and your head, if you feel your head is uncomfortable, that's an option for you. If you're a bit wobbly, you can have your lower leg bent. All right, that too is an option. Otherwise, both legs straight and bring your feet just very slightly in front of you, not too far, just very slightly in front of you, upper hand to the floor. Hips are stacked. So the bottom of my t-shirt is a good reference point here. So if one side of it's shorter than the other side, that shows that I've pulled that hip up. So I want to have my hips in line. So the bottom of my vest top is exactly straight there. Now lift that upper leg, flex your foot, push your heel away from you, and we're just going to circle here. Now your hip is the middle of the circle, so make sure that your leg travels as far behind you as it does in front of you. Watch you don't bend your knee. Work from the front of the hip. Come back to the center. Point your toes and reverse. And I want you to really lengthen. Remember, this hip doesn't sneak up towards you. So as I'm circling my leg, I'm trying to push my hip away from me. Just one more like so. Come back to the center, flex the foot. Bring your leg in front and it's a little kick. 1, 2, point, back. 1, 2, flex. 1, 2, point. No movement here. Collarbone to hip bone, completely still. Got the option of that lower leg bent if you need to. Okay, back to the center. Flex that foot and just lift lower 3. Lift lower 2, keeping that hip pulled away from you. Lift lower 1. Hold. Now, if you did have your lower leg bent, stretch it out long, please, and lift your lower leg. Hold it here, find your balance. Now, take the hand that's on the floor and slide it in between your ribs and the back. There should be just a tiny little gap there. Both legs are off the floor. You are very welcome to keep this hand on the floor. If you want a bit more challenge, can you take your arm to the ceiling? Just hold. Push your feet away from you. Get that space between you and the mat. Let's hold it 3 and 2 and 1. Lower back down. Fabulous work. Bend your knees. Hand to the floor in front of you. Heels are behind you. And I want you just to go into your clam. Open and close. Hips stay exactly in line. Open and close. And again, slide your knee up the wall in front of you and back down. Let's do 3 more. When you open at the knee, don't let your ribs sink into the floor. You've still got this space here. So you're keeping your spine in its correct position. You're not letting it drop into the mat. Let's just do that one more time. And lower back down. Super. Both legs out long. Roll onto your front. And you're going to come into a capital E or cactus arms. Now, I'm just hovering my head off the floor so that you can hear me, but your forehead will be resting on the floor. And you could have a towel folded up if you wanted to give yourself a bit of a pillow. Right angle bend in the elbows and your legs are together. Now, this is another common one that I see where people have their feet miles apart. If your legs are way apart, they don't have any connection. So bring your legs together and give your inner thighs a little squeeze. Now, if you're a bit tight in the front of the hips, that might mean that you pop your bottom up in the air. So in that case, put one big toe on top of the other big toe and let your heels fall apart. So you've still got a connection, but it'll just help to relax you slightly through the hips. So option one, legs are parallel and they're together and you're giving a little squeeze through the inner thighs. Option two, one big toe sits on top of the opposite big toe, heels fall apart. Now, I want you to make sure that your bottom ribs are on the mat, your hips, your pubic bones on the mat. And as you breathe out, start to lift your head and chest. Remember how we started this when we were standing? Keep the length in your neck. And can you push the crown of your head forwards towards the wall in front of you? Hold it. Now, don't lift your arms, but can you take the weight slightly out of your arms, but at the same time, slide your shoulders down your back. Slide your collarbones slightly further apart. Stay heavy through the front of the pelvis. Breathe into the sides and the back of the rib cage. And gently lower yourself back down. Let's go again. Try to make your neck even longer as you breathe out. Get as long through the neck as you can. Hands stay light. Hold it here a moment. Can you lift that chest an inch higher? Not your chin, your chest. Your chin will naturally follow. If you lift your chin, it gives the impression of lifting through the spine, but you're not really going any further. And lower back down. Let's do that one more time. So imagine I'm kneeling in front of you. I'm holding your head between both hands and I'm just gently pulling your head forward. Can you pull your shoulders right down away from your ears? Squeeze those abdominals, pull those ribs right up and in, heavy through the front of the pelvis, and lower back down. Wonderful work. Leave your forehead on the floor and lift both arms off the floor, only a couple of inches, not too far. Now keep your hands where they are and just lower your elbows a fraction. So your elbows are very slightly lower than your wrists, and then bring your arms back down. Let's do that one more time. We're going to memorize that arm position. Lift both arms. Let your elbows sit just slightly lower than your wrists so that you get that lovely backward, outward rotation through the shoulders. And then lower back down. Okay, so we're going to bring our arms into our upper body work. So lift your head, lift your chest. If you want to keep your arms on the floor, that's absolutely fine. And perhaps you'll take the weight out of your arms. Otherwise, both arms come off the floor. Remember, you're not sticking your elbows up in the air. Can you just very slightly lower your elbows towards the floor and then lower back down? Try not to hold your breath because I know that one. Let's go again. Lift your head, lift your chest. Both arms off the floor as an option. And maybe lift your chest a tiny bit higher and lower. Let's do that one more time. And then we're going to take this one just a tiny bit further still. But remember, you only take it to where it feels right for you. So again, lift. Both arms come up off the floor. Let those elbows sink a little lower and lift your chest a fraction higher. And lower back down. How are those legs doing? Have you still got the connection with the legs? You still breathing into your ribs, got that abdominal connection. You're aware of your pelvic floor connection. We're going to take this one level further. Lift your head, lift your chest. Both arms come away. And as you breathe in, as you breathe out, send one arm straight out in front of you. As you breathe in, pull your arm back, lift your chest slightly higher. Opposite arm straight out in front of you. Pull it back, lift that chest a little higher. And again, hips stay heavy through the floor. Now watch here that you're not starting to point your elbows up to the ceiling. Make sure that when you pull your arm back towards you, you're maintaining that right angle bend in the elbow. Let's go for one more. Lift that chest a little higher. Eye line to the floor. Keep the length in your neck. Reach the opposite arm out long. Pull it back in and lower everything back down. Bring yourself, please, into 4-point kneeling, chin to chest, and just enjoy that stretch there. Well done. Whew. Okay, fantastic. Let's come on to our opposite side here now. So you're going to take your lower arm out long. Rest your head on your lower arm. Hips are stacked. Option to slightly bend the lower knee to give you some support. But again, making sure that your upper hip hasn't sneaked up towards you. So if anything, your upper foot is slightly longer than your lower foot, so you can create that space, daylight. So you don't want to drop the waist into the floor, your waist into the floor. You want to just have that sense of space there. Upper hand in front of you, and lift your upper leg and flex your foot. Remember, your hip is the middle of the circle, and you're just going to circle. So your circle might be tennis ball size. It might be beach ball size. That will depend on what movement you've got through the hip, what stability you've got through the spine. Because if you take it into a really big circle and your ribs are collapsing down, you're not getting any benefit there at all. Come back to the center, toes pointed, and really reach out of your toes. Light on that hand in front of you. Primary support comes from the abdominals and the pelvic floor, okay? One more here. Think about your pelvic floor muscles stabilizing your pelvic girdle. Come back to the center. Now I want you to flex your foot, travel your leg forward, little kick, 1, 2, toes pointed back, 1, 2. Watch as your leg come forward, you don't lean into your hand. Okay, likewise, as your leg goes back, you're not rolling backwards. So as your leg travels, you're thinking about stability through the center. Come back to here, and we're just going to lift and lower 3 without letting the waist, the rib cage drop down. Lift, lower for 2. So keep that space there. Lift, lower for 1 and hold it. Okay, so if you did have your lower leg bent, stretch it out long, lift your foot to find your upper foot. Now you're very welcome to keep your hand here. If you want a little bit more challenge, take your arm to the ceiling and hold it. You see, I've already let my hip sneak up. Get the upper leg long, Juliet. Stop being such a hypocrite. There we go, a little bit more space under my waist. Do you see that? From here to getting that leg long, and it just gets my spine into the correct position. Okay, lower back down. Bring your hand back down. Take a little bend of those knees, and let's go into our clam. So our heel is in line with our sit bone, and we're going to open and close. The action coming from the hip. So you're watching that your ribs don't keep dropping down into the floor. Try and turn your kneecap up to the ceiling and back down. Let's do 3. Lift. And lower, just a couple more here. Open and close, and just 1 more. Open and close and relax. Superb. I want you, please, to come onto your back. Give your knees a little hug. Rest your hands on top of your knees and just circle your knees out and around. And we're going to finish with the exercise that is traditionally the first exercise, but we're doing it as the last exercise today. All right, so what I want you to do, please, come back to the center, hold the backs of both knees, roll yourself up to sitting. We're just going to have a quick roll, just so I think everything's nicely mobilized. So bring your heels in towards you, hands resting onto your shins, and just have a little roll. Let's just do 3. Nice way to mobilize the spine. It's a little bit of respite and recovery. 1 more roll and away. Now we're going to finish with the 100. Crikey, the sun's come out, hasn't it? We're going to finish with the 100. If you need to come to here, like so, as we did earlier, you're very welcome to. I'm just going to, just going to get rid of some of that shadow. There we go. A little bit better. Okay, otherwise you're going to come with me from here, pull the backs of your legs, lower yourself down, so you're just off your shoulder blades, you're into a rounded spine, shins are parallel to the ceiling, and your arms hover. So you're not just getting your head off the floor, you have got your shoulder blades right up off the floor, and you're going to beat those arms. Now you're aiming to beat them 100 times. Okay, that's the guide. You may not get there today, and that's just fine. You're going to beat your arms 5 times as you breathe in and 5 times as you breathe out. Now, I want you to make your arms as long as possible. And the idea is, as you beat your arms up and down, that you're not letting your head bounce up and down, that you're stable through your pelvis. Shins parallel to the ceiling. If you need to bring your head back down to the floor, that's absolutely fine. But for this one, please don't put your hands underneath the back of your head. We're building endurance. We're building strength in those abdominals. You're breathing in through your nose for a count of 5. You're breathing out through your mouth for a count of 5. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. Slight technological issue going on there. Trying to stop the flickery screen. Okay, make sure if your head and shoulders are off the floor, make sure your shoulder blades are actually off the floor. If they're touching, that's when the stress will go into your neck. Okay, are you nearly there? I reckon we've got 2 more rounds to go. Remember, you've got the option of head back to the mat if you need to. And as you breathe out for the next time, relax your arms, head to the floor, foot 1 to the floor, foot 2 to the floor, and come into a full body stretch. Reach your arms out long. Reach your legs out long. Make yourself as long as you can. Deep breath in. And as you breathe out, stretch a little longer. Didn't do any seated work today. You have to do another one like this. What I want you to do from here is bring your hands around, slide your hands into the curve of your lower back, lift your head, press your hands into the floor, bring yourself up and just finish with a spine stretch. Chin to chest, reach your arms out. Make sure you're sitting on your sit bones, not in front of them, and pull your arms right out in front of you. Restack and sit tall. And we're going to just do that one more time, little nod of your chin. And again, reach your arms right out in front of you. Lovely C curve through your spine. And sit tall. Bend your knees. Just take a support there with your knees. And I want you just to finish by turning and looking over one shoulder. Back to the center. Look away over the other shoulder. Back to the center. Take a nod of your chin. Just allow your spine to become slightly rounded. Roll back up. And fabulous work, everybody. Well done.